welcome back to another episode of Game Things. I'm your host for the week, Ming, and today we'll start off our episode by talking about a little bit of God of War Ragnarok. So God of War Ragnarok recently just announced that they have a brand new Game Plus mode. And with this New Game Plus mode, there are a couple of very interesting features that all of you fans of God of War would definitely love. First things first, New Game Plus will feature a brand new level cap, more enhancements for you to play around with, brand new armor for you to test out, and most importantly, a expanded version of Niflheim Arena, which effectively means more brand new content for you guys to explore. Aside from that, there's also a couple of interesting features. For example, with this New Game Plus mode, you now have access to a black and white render mode for a more cinematic playthrough. So if you're interested in this, then definitely check out this black and white render mode. All in all, I would say that all these upgrades are very good, and God of War is a very good game, you know? So having a New Game Plus mode for you to sink more hours into the game is definitely great news for all the hardcore players of God of War Ragnarok. Moving on from that, let's talk about another rather popular series that's about to be released soon, and that's on Tekken 8. So the director of the Tekken series has recently confirmed that Tekken 8 will in fact support crossplay between PS5, Xbox Series S and X, as well as PC. Aside from that, they've also confirmed that Tekken 8 will have a lot more characters at launch compared to Street Fighter 6. Well, when they say this a lot more, we don't exactly know how many we're getting, but I guess we're getting a pretty good amount, maybe, who knows. Be sure to subscribe to us Game Things, and you know, when there's more news on this, a lot more characters, we'll be sure to feature it on our channel and you guys will definitely be updated. Aside from that, they have also confirmed that the beta will be released at some point of time, which of course we don't know yet at the moment, but hey, you know, we will keep you guys updated. And yeah, that's basically more or less it on news for Tekken. So now let's talk about another rather popular series that was just released, I think about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and that's Resident Evil 4. So unfortunately, Resident Evil 4 has just recently included some microtransactions, but it's not actually as bad as it seems. Reason being that this microtransactions is kind of just for if you want to kind of cheat the game, because the only thing this microtransaction does is for you to spend real money and get weapon exclusive upgrade tickets, which to be honest, you don't really need to clear the game. So I guess it's really just for stuff like speed running, or if you just want to break the game and make life easier for yourself, or maybe just enjoy the story, then maybe you can consider this weapon exclusive upgrade tickets. But otherwise, I would say it's kinda useless. But hey, you know, at least there's an option, I guess. Moving on from microtransactions, let's talk about the king of microtransactions, EA. So apparently, EA has rejected the pitch of American McGee's Alice sequel. So for all of you guys that were interested in the American McGee's Alice, yeah, you guys aren't getting a sequel for that game, as EA has unfortunately shut the game down. But hopefully, that game is pretty darn old, so maybe the reason why a sequel was rejected is because maybe EA thinks a remake might be more practical. Who knows, we have been remaking so many games nowadays, we don't really know. But hey, if you are a fan of it, I guess you can kind of pray hard. Moving on from that, let's talk about a rather popular franchise, and that's the Star Wars franchise. Star Wars Jedi Survivor recently just got their last and final trailer for the damn game. So this particular trailer actually showcased a decent amount of gameplay, and at the same time also introduced us to a couple of characters, and at the same time giving us a general overview of the story. Moving on from Star Wars, we're gonna talk about a somewhat interesting game that has been around for quite a while, but I personally have never tried it before, although I always thought it looked pretty cool. And that game entitled is Ark Survival. So the Ark Survival franchise recently had a pretty big controversy, or I guess complaints, surrounding them. And this particular complaint was actually covered in last week's episode. So if you want to look into this particular situation more, I actually suggest giving last week's episode a view. But well, let me give you the Too Long Did Not Read version, otherwise known as the summarized version. Basically, Arc 2, which was originally set to be released this year, has been delayed to 2024, and somehow the devs have decided that, hey, while the game Arc 2 has been delayed, we're gonna release a brand new remastered version of the existing Arc Survival game. And we are gonna call this new Arc Survival game Arc Survival Ascended. And guess what? When we release this Arc Survival Ascended, we are gonna turn off the servers for Arc Survival Evolved. And for all of you players that owned Arc Survival Evolved, you guys are gonna have to pay like $50 to buy Ark Survival Ascended and enjoy the game, which is absolutely ridiculous because the game is basically the same thing but a remastered version on brand new servers. This is basically the entire controversy, and well, after outrage from the community, the devs have decided that, hey, you know, the Ark Survival remastered version will still be released, and well, unfortunately it's still not free, but here's the thing. Supposed new upgrade will now cost $60 and will include all the DLC. Yeah, still pretty scummy if you ask me, but hey, at least it's somewhat better. Not by a long shot, but at least it's a little better. Anyway, moving on from, well, scummy practices and remastered games, let's talk about a couple of games that you can get your hands on right now, starting with Ghostwire Tokyo being released on Xbox Series S and X. So, Ghostwire Tokyo. I actually have first-hand experience with this game. I played it on the PC, and let me give you my review of this game. It's visually a pretty good game. Story-wise, the game is not bad, pretty good, but here's the catch. The game is kinda boring. Why? So, I've played games like Spider-Man, you know, the most recent PlayStation Spider-Man, and like a lot of these games, you go around the city, you just collect a lot of collectibles and stuff like that, and you get to upgrade your characters, which is great. But the thing is, a lot of these games where you have to collect a lot of stuff, you get a lot of different upgrades to your equipment. And I would say that Ghostwire Tokyo, yes, you get a lot of upgrades to your skills, your equipment, stuff like that. But the problem with Ghostwire Tokyo is that your melee combat kind of relies on three particular elements, and even though you upgrade these melee combat skills, I guess, they don't really feel different, which is kind of the main problem. And to be fair, a lot of the collecting stuff is really dry. Don't get me wrong, I still think visually and concept wise the game is pretty sick. I mean, if you are the type of player that, you know, is a completionist and you collect every single thing, oh man, you are gonna dread this game because it gets pretty darn boring. But otherwise, you know, if you just want to have a decent story and just go through the game and enjoy it as what it is without being a completionist, then it's okay. The game's actually pretty good. Moving on to our next title, it's the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, coming out on PS4, Switch, and PC. So this collection, oh, let me tell you, I'm getting this shit day one, man, because Mega Man Battle Network, if you have never played it before, was a pretty great title back in the Game Boy Advance era, and the games were pretty darn good, not gonna lie. Story was pretty, it was alright, but then again, I've played the game like I think 10 years ago, so I don't exactly remember the story, but gameplay wise, it's really good. And the Legacy Collection has a lot of games. The last and final game that we're gonna feature this week is Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened, available on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, as well as PC. So Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened is, well, a Sherlock Holmes game, as you would expect. But what makes this Sherlock Holmes game different compared to its predecessors? It's basically Sherlock Holmes meets Lovecraftian lore. For those of you that don't know what Lovecraftian is, it's basically Cthulhu. Yeah, it's Sherlock Holmes meets Cthulhu. So yeah, if you like a good supernatural mystery game with a lot of puzzles for you to solve and a lot of things to explore, then I would say Sherlock Holmes The Awakened is definitely for you. Especially more so if you're interested in, well, Cthulhu. Because hey, Cthulhu is always a very interesting character slash creature, and I always love to see how writers slash developers create their own narrative or spin on this particular mythical creature. Anyways, that's basically it for this week's releases. Now let's move on to our last and final segment featuring free things. So this week, Epic Games Store is giving out Mordhau as well as Second Extinction. So be sure to get these two games before it's no longer available. Aside from that, there's also a rather interesting free game that is available at the moment, and that particular game is a Dead Space remake. Yes, you heard that right. Someone has created a Dead Space remake. Anyway, that's the end of our episode for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and once again, I'm your host for the week, Ming, and we'll see you in another episode of Game Things next week. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.